All right. Hey, Fort Irwin, welcome back to another episode 3 of Beyond the Box, where we discuss everything about Fort Irwin. I'm your co-host, Colonel Jason Clark, the Garrison Commander.
And I'm Command Sergeant Major Larson, your Garrison Command Sergeant Major.
And so we've talked in the past about why we transitioned to the podcast, and actually we had someone at the Newcomers actually ask us that question today, which I thought was pretty cool. It means they're listening to our podcast already, so that's great. But we want to broaden out how we get viewers. That's why we're changing from a podcast. But today, we want to talk about jobs. So right now at Fort Irwin, we have about 30%, or over 200 positions available here on the garrison. And that's anywhere from a USA through USAJobs as a DA civilian or a non-appropriated fund person, contractors, people that work at the schools. And most importantly for me is the child care piece, right?
Yep.
And so some people probably wonder, like, why can't I get a job, or why can't I want to work but I can't get child care? Well, how do I say this? It's almost like a negative interest type of situation, right? The more people that we have work in child care, the more kids we can put into child care, right? The more kids we have put into child care, the more spouses can work on the installation. And the more spouses that work on the installation, the more services we can provide. So right now, we're about 30% understaffed at the child care centers, which means that's about 30% or more less things to do on base, right? So that means like extended hours at, say, Burger King or Pizza Hut. And so when you're walking around, you're like wondering why Pizza Hut closes at 5, because we have 3 people that work there, 2 of them are spouses. And so the more spouses we have in the employment, the more ability we have to open up those other services. The same thing like the MWR. We close every MWR facility 2 days a week because we don't have enough staff to run those 7 days a week for lunch and for dinner. So I want to give a shout out to all of our spouses today, especially those working on the installation or actively looking for positions on the installation. And I really appreciate you taking that time to work on our installation, because you really do make a difference for our team here. So we're going to take a short commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to bring Rebecca Estrella on with us. And I hope I got that right. I know I get corrected every now and then.
You
But
got to roll the L's.
Got to roll the L's, yeah. So Rebecca for sure. But she is our employment readiness specialist. She is the go-to person that works on the garrison, that helps be the intermediate between the job you're looking for and the people that are hiring you for the job. And she will talk to us today about how to go through and navigate USAJobs. She's going to talk to us about resume building and how that translates in different circles, whether it's a military resume or a civilian resume. And she's going to talk about her product that she built called the Seeker and what that looks like and how to find those careers. So we'll be right back with Rebecca. All right, well, welcome back. With us today we have
Rebecca Estrella.
All right, and that's how you say your name officially. I know I mess it up all the time.
You did a good job, sir. Good job.
I appreciate it. And Rebecca, what do you do for the community?
So I am the Employment Readiness Program Manager underneath Army Community Service, ACS. And so ACS is here for the family members. So that's like an easy way to think of Army Community Service. What I do is I provide the tools and resources anyone who is looking for a job needs to gain meaningful employment.
Okay. And you yourself are a military spouse, correct?
I am. I've been with my husband 21 years. 18 years married, 21 together. So I've been with him on this journey, either going to school or looking for employment. So I definitely understand the employment game.
Yeah, that's some of the challenges that spouses are going through, right?
Yes.
And every time you move, you have to look for
Starts
another
over.
job, right?
Yes, I've been there. I know what it's like. And so being able to identify some of the jobs that can help you maintain some of the job skills that you have or help you develop is really what I found to be successful in my career.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to ask is, how can a spouse who moves every 2 to 3 years with their service member have the right tools to set them up to get the job at the next location?
So the number one thing that I think is to be open-minded with some of the employments that we have here. As a military spouse, depending on the location that you go, you might be limited on some of the jobs that are out there. That's not necessarily a disadvantage. That means that you're able to go into another field and learn more skills. You're going to learn those hard and soft skills. And so that's what's going to keep you competitive in the game when you go look for new employment on a new installation.
No, okay. So if I hear what you're saying right, so if you're a spouse that has an open mind and you have a couple different jobs or employments during your total career, it's more of a marathon, not a sprint. And so don't be fixated like you were doing this one job here at Fort Irwin and you move to Fort next, that you want that same job. Worry about kind of like transition, find out what that long-term goal is and get there.
Yes.
And sometimes it's a road less traveled, right?
Yes. You know, if we are fixated on just a specific position, just a specific job, it might be difficult to get those types. So let's be open-minded and let's kind of look at different fields that have the same things. I get a lot of people who are interested in medical support assistants, so MSA positions. So if we don't have that position available here, what's something similar that you can kind of keep your skills relevant and you're constantly learning?
Yeah.
So maybe looking for administrative position, maybe working for a school, maybe working at AFES for an admin position, maybe volunteering. So let's not dismiss volunteer opportunities as well. That's a great opportunity to bridge the gap on your resume and to keep building on your skills.
So with all the moving, transitioning jobs and all that, that means reapplying
Yes.
somewhere new every couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
which also involves resumes
Yes.
and stuff. So what are some key things that people need to know as they transition and as they're getting their resumes together for these different jobs?
So resumes is like a living document. You're always going to constantly be updating your resume. And I recommend having a federal resume and a civilian resume because you never know what type of jobs out there that you're going to be interested in. And so you want to prepare for a job now for that future position. And so that's something that I absolutely recommend. Have a civilian resume and have a federal resume.
So what's the difference?
There's a big difference. So a lot of people don't know this, but civilian resumes generally are 1 to 2 pages long. They have a combination of your skills, your experiences in reverse chronological order. Federal resumes are the same thing, except a little bit more. So for federal resumes, there is no page limit. It could be 5 pages long. So you're really detailing everything about your experience. And the formatting is a little bit different in the amount of information that's required. So on USAJobs, they do have a resume builder on there. And if you really look at the job announcement under a resume, they're requiring specific information. They're requiring number of hours that you've worked at that position. How long have you been in there? References are very important on a federal resume because they actually call them. And they're more of summaries versus bullet points. So there are key things that you have to include for a federal resume. And if you don't include it, you're not going to be qualified. So sometimes they're going to get that unpleasant email that says you're found unqualified when you probably qualify for that position. You just didn't tell the entire story.
Okay, and what does that look like? Where do I go to find a job here at Fort Irwin? And what does that look like so I got my resume, right? And I've talked to you, and what's the next step? How do I find a job? How quickly will I get that job? How flexible do I need to be, I guess?
So what you're going to hear in HR, and I tab into HR a little bit, is it just depends. So the first thing that I would say is get on our Seeker. So the Seeker is a product that was developed here on Fort Irwin that encompasses all job vacancies here on the installation. You're talking about federal, contractor, civilian positions. So that's the first thing. You kind of want to see what's out there. Next, it's developing your resume. So again, you want to have your civilian and your federal resume. A lot of jobs here I'm finding do accept that federal resume because our positions are kind of commingled with each other and they work well together. You could either build a resume on USAJobs using the resume builder, or you can upload a resume. And then it's about dissecting that job announcement. So regardless if it's a civilian or federal resume, you want to look at that job announcement, make sure that you meet the qualifications, and then look at the duties, and then tailor your resume for that position.
So I'd look at what's available, and if I'm like I see a qualification that's on there. I know I've done that before, but it's not on my current resume. Update my resume to show that I actually had that qualification.
Yes.
Don't necessarily lie, because I'm going to call your reference,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And be like, hey, I heard Jason can do, a high wire act, but I can't, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure you're truthful, but you're actually qualified to find out what's in there. Why is that so important to make sure that your resume matches those qualifications?
Well, that's how they're going to see whether you're not, you meet the qualifications, but you meet the competencies of that job announcement.
Okay.
So whether it's civilian or federal, you got to show that you can do this job.
Okay.
And so what I find is a lot of people, if they're interested in that position, chances are they've already done something similar within their life, within their experiences, whether it's paid or unpaid. And so by looking at that job announcement, you can kind of refresh your memory and say, you know what, I did do this. I did do X, Y, Z, and then put it into your resume and elaborate it with your own personal experience. And so for federal resumes, once you get past the system, and we'll talk about that a little bit, there is an HR representative who's looking at your resume to see if you even qualify for this position. So that's very important to make sure that you're hitting those key marks.
Okay. All right.
So what about,
Sorry.
so you see a position you like,
Mm-hmm.
and you think it'd be interesting, then how would you see if there's other similar positions that may not be the same because you think you're really qualified for that one? Like let's say it's a outdoor recreation thing that I like, but maybe I'd want to be a mountain biking instructor, and then there's other positions available in the same family. So how would I find out if there's positions available with
You know
that?
what? That's a great question. So on USAJobs, there is something called a family series. And so if you're interested in this one position, you can actually click on that series, and tons of different job titles and positions will list in various locations. So it's not necessarily going to be just specific to Fort Irwin. It will open it up. And so what I tell my clients is, again, you want to prepare for that future position. So it's important to look at positions that you're interested in. Maybe you're looking for a promotion. Maybe you're looking for something higher. So you're going to look at that family series. You're going to look at the different jobs and just see what is it that you're missing. Are you missing any qualifications? Are you missing any requirements that you can start working on now? Maybe it's a certification that you need. Maybe it's a little bit more education or more experience in a certain database. So you're essentially preparing yourself now for that future position. So the family series is a great way to see what's out there, because sometimes what you'll find is the title isn't necessarily what that position is about, and so you're able to do that research.
Okay. And do you recommend people do one application at a time, or maybe multiple ones within that same family series?
I tell people, don't count your chickens before they hatch.
Yeah.
So apply and apply and apply, because sometimes depending on the position, especially since we're talking about federal employment, it can take a while, and it depends. You could get hired on in 30 days. It could be 6 months. It just depends. There isn't some magic number. It depends on how quick they need that position, and there's so much more that's involved specific to that title and to that job category. And so it's important to just be patient and to take your time when it comes to federal resume writing. Sometimes I see a lot of people, or I hear about people who are trying to apply for a position that closes tomorrow, and that's not necessarily probably going to help you because you might be missing key information. And so it's important to really look at that job announcement, to look at the opening date and closing date for one. That's like the number one thing you want to look at, because even though it has a closing date of, let's say, October 1st of 2022, the closing date is on Eastern Standard Time. So here in California, that's going to be Pacific Standard Time.
Yeah.
So the position is going to close 11:59 Eastern Standard Time, which means it's 8:59 Eastern Pacific Standard Time. And then sometimes they close the position without you knowing. Maybe they've reached a certain limit. And so I tell my clients, first, pay attention to those opening and closing dates. You don't want to wait until that last date to submit. And then really it's about looking at that job announcement, because sometimes there's requirements there that you have to consider. Not only about looking at the duties and the qualifications of the job, but what documents are needed in order to apply and to be considered for that position. Because if you're missing any document, then you might disqualify yourself or not be considered for that position.
So you talked about a closing date. So I just want to kind of continue to recap. So come see you.
Yes.
First and foremost, come see you. Look at the job seeker that's posted on the QR code,
Yes.
right? Build my resume, tailor it to the job that I'm trying to get, which means I might have to update based off the qualifications if I'm qualified. Obviously, I've done this position, whether volunteer or other paid positions. Submit all my stuff. Don't forget everything. You know, if it calls for transcripts, right? College transcripts, get that all in there. Make sure you get every page, right? I've heard rumors
Every page.
or horror stories about like the last page, right? So then the date closes. So what I'm trying to understand expectations and provide expectations to people. What can I expect after it closes?
So once you submit, once you hit the submit button, you're instantaneously going to receive an email that says, thank you for your application. That's
Okay.
first and foremost.
Okay.
Because sometimes I find that some of my clients think that they've submitted the application and then they forgot to hit submit. So as soon as you hit submit, you're instantaneously going to receive an email that says, thank you for your application.
Okay.
Then give it about 30 days. 30 days, you're going to receive possibly a series of emails. The first one is going to say, thank you for your application. We found that you're qualified. Your resume was sent to the hiring manager. That's the goal. That's what we want.
Yeah. If it doesn't go to the hiring manager, do I get an email that says, thank you for applying, you were not recommended?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes and no. So you'll receive an email that says, thank you for your resume. We found that you qualify for the position, but you weren't referred to the hiring manager. That's still an okay. That just means that there was preferences involved possibly. There's a number of different things.
What do you mean by preference?
Oh, preferences. So preferences are, they're like brownie points, I guess, that if that's a way to say it. So preferences kind of give you leverage when you're applying for a position. There's veterans preferences, there's spousal preferences, there's overseas, there's a variety of different preferences. What I tend to concentrate more and teach on is on veterans preference. So for those service members who are getting out of the service, they have their DD-214, member copy 2 or member copy 4. And disabilities, they can get a 10-point preference, 30-point preference, it kind of just depends. For military spouses, there's two popular ones. We have Executive Order 13473, and then we have Military Spouse Preference, MSP, formerly known as PPP. And those preferences just kind of give you a leg up when you're applying. But there's required documents that are needed. So if you forget any document, then you're not going to be considered for that preference, and you'll kind of be in the back of the line with everybody else who are applying for that position.
Okay, so if I'm coming to you for a job, do you help us navigate to those preference positions and say this is what, make sure when you're doing this job, it's a veteran preference job, you need all these additional forms to upload?
Yes, I teach it in my class. So I do teach a resume class specific to federal resume writing. Federal resume writing can be confusing. There's so many different tricks and tips to know when it comes to federal resume writing. It can be a little bit overwhelming, and I really dissect it in my federal resume classes. I also talk about veterans preference and spousal preference and what documents are needed. In my class, I do have various documents and resources that I provide to my students digitally. I give them hard copies, so I make sure that my students and my clients are set up for success.
How often do you do those classes?
Every month. So I teach a federal resume class every month and a civilian resume class every month that dives deep into the formatting and what to include and how to make powerful impact statements on your resume as well.
Where do people need to go to sign up for that?
They can email me. So they can email me, Rebecca, Rebecca.Estrella, ESTRELLA.civ,
Okay.
Yeah.
And your email's on the header page of the seeker.
I put it everywhere. So email is the best way to get a hold of me. Phone call, maybe not so much because I'm so in and out and I'm helping clients and attending to appointments or classes.
Sure.
So email is the best way to get in touch with me.
Okay, so the standard is you want that email that says, congratulations, your resume has been sent to, is it management or where does it get sent to? Your email's been referred?
Yes.
Or your application, I'm sorry.
Has been accepted?
Yeah, I said email. My application has been accepted. Then what at that point?
So after 30 days, if you really haven't heard anything other than maybe thank you for your application, we've accepted it, then you can submit an applicant inquiry process. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. On the actual job announcement, all the way at the bottom, the very bottom where it says contact information, you're either going to have somebody's name on there and their email address and their phone number, like a direct link, or it's going to be a website.
Okay.
So you could either contact them personally or go onto that website. Once you click onto that website, it's going to take you to a couple of different steps. Once you click on it, you're going to go all the way down, left-hand side, last box, top row. I know this by memory. And it's going to be appeals process, disputes. And so you would click on that, and it takes you to the applicant inquiry process.
Okay.
And so clients can do that.
Can you also get feedback that says, let's say you get an email that says you're qualified, but it didn't go forward, right? Not referred or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Can you get any feedback on why that may have happened?
Yeah, again, it's just going through the applicant inquiry process just to kind of ask them. They can tell you sometimes, oh, you were missing a document, you were considered for preference. They could possibly tell you, another preference had a higher value than yours. So it's possible just to have that communication with them.
So if it does move forward, and then what do they call you for interviews? Like, how does that work?
So they do. So once you get selected and the hiring manager is looking at your resume, then they would proceed with interviews in the selection process. So they'll do an interview. I find that a lot of federal employment do a lot of behavioral interview-based questions, and so you want to kind of prepare for those. I do teach that in my class. And then it's a waiting game. Once you go through your interview process, they'll tell you whether or not you're selected, and then it could be a little bit of time after that. But going through that applicant inquiry process, you can kind of follow up or then touch base with the hiring manager if you have their point of contact information.
Okay. I'm trying to, in my head, rack up the amount of time. It could take up to about 4 months from the time you put in your resume to the time the thing closes, to the time you say congratulations, we accepted your application, the time that you get that you qualify to move forward for an interview, and then you do your interview, find out that you got hired. It seems to be pretty long.
It could be. It just depends. There's different hiring families, GS positions, wage grade, NAF positions. I do find that a lot of GS positions are on the lengthier side. It could take up to 6 months. So you have to be patient. And as I mentioned before, you don't want to count all your, put all your eggs in one basket. Keep applying, keep seeing what's out there. I do find that some of the NAF positions, wage grade positions, are a little bit faster. So it could be about 30 days, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's more than 30 days. So just to be patient with the process.
So if we're about to PCS, how long before I actually PCS should I, if I'm a spouse looking for another position someplace at another location, and I want to stay within the government realm, right? How far back should I plan on my PCS? So if I know I'm leaving in, let's say, we get orders for June of 2023 to PCS to, let's just say, Fort Lewis, Washington. Mm-hmm. When should I start applying and look for those jobs that are at Fort Lewis, Washington?
So if you're utilizing spousal preference, and if you're using MSP, which you can use when there's new orders that are cut, 30 days before PCSing is where you can use that one.
Okay.
There is Executive Order 13473 where you can use all day long at any time.
Okay.
But it depends on how the job announcement is posted. Some of them will use both, some of them will use one or the other. So it just depends.
Okay.
As a person who has been in this field for so long and looking for jobs, as a military spouse, with my experience, I recommend start looking for job 3 months before. And start working on your resume and updating it anywhere between 6 months prior to, just so you can be ready. And to turn on email notifications in whatever employment platform you're looking for. So if it's on USAJobs, make sure you turn on your email notifications so that way you're the first to know when any jobs are out. If you're utilizing Indeed or Monsters, doing the same thing, because you just never know when a job's going to come out. Jobs are being added and taken out every single day. And so there's just so many missed opportunities when you don't have email notifications turned on.
Okay. All right.
Can you tell us, I know right now we have the new Defense Health Administration process going on where those folks used to fall underneath our typical CPAC. Mm-hmm. Can you shed some light on what's going on right now with that process?
So unfortunately I can't, because I don't know too much about that. All I know is that there's been a little bit of a hiring standstill at the moment,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean that they're not going to hire anymore. So the clients who have been reaching out to me, the nurses, the MSAs, those individuals, prepare your resume now. They're going to be opening those positions, and so you just don't know. So it's good practice to prepare now, again, for that future position.
Okay. Why don't we take a break and we'll come back in a few minutes. All right, so welcome back. I don't think we have any questions today for us. So, as always, please give us your comments and your questions so we can, answer those directly from the Garrison Command Team. But next week we're going to be on a regular Facebook with RSOI3 with the Commanding General of NTC, General Taylor, and the MEDAC Command Team. So we'll be Facebook Live next week. But a few events I want to throw out there. I know you saw the calendar already. But in September, please mark your calendar for September 17th. It's a big day here at Fort Irwin. That's Oktoberfest, but it's also the 11th ACR Black Horse Marathon, and we're also doing the Gold Star Walk to Remember, all on the same day on the 17th of September. And as always, all the events can be found in the QR code behind us. And what I need from the community, we need a good call-off slogan.
We do.
So please, in the comments, I want to hear from you. What do you want our call-off slogan to be? Dave Dupree's always got peace. We can always say until next time. But I like to see if there's a catchy Fort Irwin or National Training Center ism out there that we can use as our catchphrase as we sign off. So until next time.
Yep.
This is Beyond the Box with the Garrison Command Team. Thanks for tuning in.